Blood on the streets of New York, a killer leaving bodies behind, each one staged with surgical precision. Some call him the New York Ripper, but others whisper another name. Could this be the work of Dexter Morgan, the Bay Harbor butcher who was never truly caught? If Dexter survived, if he slipped into the shadows once more, then the city that never sleeps may have just become his new hunting ground. For years, Dexter Morgan lived by a simple but twisted set of rules. He killed, but only those who deserved it. Murderers, rapists, predators, they were his prey. To most of the world, Dexter was a mild-mannered blood spatter analyst, a quiet man with a strange smile and a secret no one could see. But fans of his story know the truth. Dexter was more than just a man. He was the dark passenger. A hunter who hid in plain sight. At the end of Dexter, New Blood, many believed his story had finally ended. Harrison, his son, turned the gun on him. Dexter's lifeless body left fans with shock, heartbreak, and even anger. After all, how could one of TV's most legendary anti-heroes meet such an ordinary end? Some accepted it as closure. Others felt betrayed, but here's where the whispers begin. Death has never been permanent in the world of Dexter. The ocean currents once carried him away when Miami burned his life to the ground. What if the snowy woods of Iron Lake were just another escape route? What if the Bay Harbor butcher never died? Now imagine this: Dexter in New York, a city filled with faceless millions. A city where crime thrives in every dark corner, where predators think they can vanish into the crowd. For a man like Dexter, it's a paradise and a nightmare rolled into one. The concrete jungle offers endless targets, endless temptations, and maybe a killer who challenges even him. The idea of the New York Ripper isn't just a random theory. Fans point to the way Showtime framed its new project, Resurrection. That word alone shakes the ground. Resurrection means return. It means unfinished business. And for Dexter, unfinished business is something he's carried since the first time he felt blood on his hands. His code was broken, his family scattered, his identity shattered. If there was ever a reason for the dark passenger to resurface, it would be here in New York, hunting for a new purpose. The city itself becomes more than just a backdrop. Think about it. Miami was sunshine, palm trees, and hidden darkness. Iron Lake was snow, silence, and buried secrets. New York, it's noise, chaos, and shadows that stretch across endless alleys and rooftops. A predator like Dexter doesn't just live there. He thrives. He disappears into it like a shark in deep water. The theory suggests he could reinvent himself once again, not as a lumberjack in hiding, but as a ghost in the metropolis. But here's where the real mystery grows. If Dexter truly returned in New York, would he still follow Harry's code? Or has he broken too many rules, crossed too many lines to care anymore? Fans speculate that the New York Ripper might not be just another killer. It might be Dexter himself, letting go of the last threads of morality he had. No more codes, no more boundaries. Just the pure dark passenger set loose in the city. Others argue the opposite. They believe Dexter wouldn't let himself slip into chaos so easily. Instead, the Ripper could be someone else, a rival, a reflection, maybe even someone inspired by Dexter's own legend. Don't forget, the Bay Harbor butcher became famous. His story spread beyond Miami. What if someone picked up where he left off? A killer who studied him, admired him, and decided to wear his mask in the world's biggest city. Either way, one truth remains: if the Ripper exists, and if Dexter walks again, their paths will collide. And that's the kind of collision that doesn't end quietly. The gunshot in Iron Lake was supposed to be the end. Harrison pulled the trigger, Dexter fell, and the story seemed finished. But fans know better than to take death at face value. In a world built on deception and hidden truths, think back to the very first finale of Dexter's original run. The hurricane, the boat, the disappearance. Everyone believed he was dead, lost at sea. But in reality, Dexter was alive, hiding. As a lumberjack in the wilderness, if he could escape death once, why not again? This theory argues that the so-called death in Dexter, new blood, was nothing more than another sleight of hand. A trick, a staged ending to free him from the burden of Iron Lake. We never see his body buried. We never see a morgue. What we see is a gunshot, a fall, and then nothing. That silence leaves space for imagination. And in that space, the idea of Dexter's resurrection grows. Now picture this. Dexter, wounded but alive, slipping away into the night. Harrison, believing he's killed his father, leaves behind the town, the chaos, and the guilt. But Dexter, he endures. He always endures. And where does a man with no home, no name, and no future go? He goes to a city where he can vanish into millions of faces. He goes to New York. New York isn't just a random choice in this theory. It's the perfect place for a predator like Dexter to hide. A small town watches every stranger. A suburb whispers about every neighbor. But a man in New York, he's invisible. Nobody cares who you are, where you came from, or what you've done. In a sea of 8 million people, one ghost can move freely. And that ghost can hunt. But what pushes him to hunt again? In Iron Lake, he tried to stop. He built routines, pretended at peace. Yet every time Dexter has tried to silence his dark passenger, it claws back. The urge to kill isn't just a habit, it's his nature. In New York, surrounded by corruption, crime, and predators who think they're untouchable, the dark passenger wouldn't just whisper, it would roar. Dexter would see targets everywhere, men who hurt women in alleyways, crime bosses who silence witnesses, killers who slip through the cracks of the system. New York is a feast for someone like him, but this time, the theory suggests Dexter would be different. He wouldn't just follow Harry's code like before. He'd adapt it, change it, maybe even twist it. In Miami, the code kept him careful, clean, hidden. In Iron Lake, it nearly destroyed him. If Dexter survives into New York, would he still cling to that old rulebook? Or would he cut it loose and make a new one tailored to the chaos of the city? Imagine him bending the rules, justifying kills not because they fit the code, but because they feed the passenger. Fans supporting this theory point to the title of the rumored continuation, Dexter Resurrection. Resurrection isn't about returning the same. It's about coming back changed, evolved, sometimes darker than before. A resurrected Dexter might not be the careful hunter we once knew. He might be something more dangerous, a man who no longer hides behind rules, but one who accepts exactly what he is. In this version of events, the New York Ripper isn't another person at all. It's Dexter himself, a new alias, a new legend, born out of the city's shadows. The media gives him the name, just as they once gave him the title of the Bay Harbor Butcher. Bodies start to appear, dissected, staged, screaming with Dexter's old precision. Detectives whisper, reporters speculate. A killer walks among them, and the city trembles. And yet, in the middle of it all, Dexter blends in perfectly, walking unnoticed on the same streets, sipping coffee from a corner shop, riding the subway, next to the very people hunting him. Of course, this raises a chilling question. If Dexter is the New York Ripper, how long before someone recognizes his methods? How long before the ghosts of Miami and Iron Lake follow him into this new city? His survival would buy him time, but it would not erase his past. The code may have helped him survive before, but without it, his trail might grow too loud, too bloody, and too impossible to ignore. This theory transforms Dexter from the man we once knew into something far more dangerous. Not just a hunter, following rules, but a predator reborn. And if resurrection really does mean a return, then fans wonder if it means this. Not the return of Dexter Morgan the father, the analyst, the man, but the return of Dexter Morgan the monster. What if the New York Ripper isn't Dexter at all? What if the torch has already been passed, whether Dexter meant it or not? Harrison Morgan, Dexter's son, left Iron Lake carrying more than just his father's blood in his veins. He carried the darkness. The hints were there from the very beginning. The sudden bursts of anger, the way violence seemed to follow him, and most of all, his terrifying admission that he felt urges he didn't fully understand, urges he inherited. In Dexter, New Blood, Harrison became both judge and executioner when he pulled the trigger on his father, but did killing Dexter cleanse him or awaken him? This theory claims that Harrison himself becomes the New York Ripper. After Iron Lake, he couldn't simply go back to normal teenage life. He couldn't just vanish into society without the shadow of what he had done. He killed his father. And killing, for someone with a dark passenger, doesn't end with one pull of the trigger. It starts something. It plants a seed. Imagine Harrison leaving Iron Lake, running from his past, and finding himself in New York. He doesn't go there with a plan, at least not at first. Maybe he thinks he can escape. Maybe he thinks he can start fresh. But the city doesn't care about fresh starts. New York is chaos, temptation, and violence at every corner. The same predators Dexter once hunted, Harrison sees them too. He notices the bullies, the abusers, the killers who slip by unnoticed. And slowly, that seed begins to grow. But here's the key difference. Harrison never had Harry's code drilled into him the way Dexter did. His father gave him fragments, lessons, warnings, but never the structure that defined Dexter's life. Harrison carries the urges without the rules, and that makes him unpredictable. When he kills, it isn't neat, clinical, or calculated. It's messy, emotional, a reflection of his inner chaos. That's where the idea of the New York Ripper comes in. Unlike Dexter, whose kills were precise and surgical, the Ripper's crimes could be brutal, raw, and erratic. Bodies torn apart with rage, crime scenes left behind like screams for attention. It's not a hunter operating in silence. It's a storm trying to find its shape. And if the Ripper is Harrison, it means the boy who once judged his father has become something even darker. This theory also explains the word resurrection in a different way. It's not Dexter himself rising from the grave, but rather his legacy. His sins, his darkness, resurrected in his son. Harrison doesn't just carry his father's bloodline, he carries the curse. The passenger doesn't die, it just shifts hosts. And in New York, it finds all the fuel it needs to burn. But here's where things get even more chilling. If Harrison is the Ripper, does Dexter return after all? Not as the killer, but as the hunter. Fans speculate that if Dexter somehow survived, his new mission wouldn't be to indulge the dark passenger. It would be to stop it, to stop his own son. Think about the tragic poetry of that idea. Dexter once swore to never kill an innocent, but what if his son became guilty? What if his son became the monster? Could Dexter kill Harrison to protect the code? Could he kill the very person he sacrificed everything for? This angle opens the door for some of the darkest storytelling in the series. It turns father against son, not in theory, but in reality. Dexter facing the ultimate test of his code, Harrison facing the truth of his inheritance, and the city of New York caught in the middle. As a new wave of killings grips the streets, the theory also reflects a pattern we've seen before in Dexter's story: cycles. Harry passed the code to Dexter. Dexter tried, in his own flawed way, to pass it to Harrison. But instead of saving him, maybe he cursed him. Just as Dexter could never escape his passenger, Harrison may never escape his own. The Ripper isn't a stranger. The Ripper is the next chapter in the Morgan bloodline. And if Harrison truly becomes the Ripper, then Dexter's resurrection isn't about his survival. It's about his confrontation. His return to face the monster he created. A battle not just between two killers, but between father and son, both driven by darkness, both believing they're in the right. And in the end, only one of them walks away. Every legend leaves behind echoes. And Dexter Morgan, the Bay Harbor butcher, was more than just a man. He was a ghost story whispered in morgues and police stations, a name scribbled across newspaper headlines, a case file that never truly closed. Even though the world thought he died years ago, his legend survived. And legends have a dangerous way of inspiring followers. This theory suggests that the New York Ripper isn't Dexter, and it isn't Harrison. It's someone else entirely. A copycat killer, or worse, a group of them. A cult born from the shadow of Dexter Morgan. Think about it. The Bay Harbor butcher was infamous. He killed dozens of criminals who slipped through the system, each body wrapped with precision, each disappearance leaving investigators baffled. For the public, he became something more than a monster. He became a symbol, a dark avenger. The media painted him as terrifying, but also mysterious, almost mythical, and myths inspire obsession. Somewhere out there, people would admire him. They'd study him. They'd want to be him. Now imagine years later, in New York, a string of killings begins. At first, they look familiar, victims who are themselves predators. Killings staged with surgical detail, plastic, blood spatter, careful ritual. Detectives think, this feels like Dexter, but here's the twist. It isn't him. It's someone mimicking his style, someone who studied his work like a blueprint. A copycat using his methods to carve their own bloody path through the city, but why stop at one? The idea of a cult of Dexter pushes this theory even further. Online forums, dark web chat rooms, underground communities. It isn't hard to imagine people obsessed with Dexter's story coming together. Fans who idolize him not as a villain, but as a necessary evil. In the shadows, they could share his methods, his rules, even his rituals. In New York, this obsession could take shape as a group of killers, each one carrying a piece of Dexter's legend, working together to resurrect him not as a man, but as an idea. The New York Ripper wouldn't be one person, it would be many, and that's where the story becomes truly dangerous. Because how do you stop an idea? A single killer can be hunted, tracked, cornered. But a movement spreads, mutates, survives. If the Ripper is a copycat or a cult, then Dexter's greatest nightmare comes true. His code no longer belongs to him. His legacy becomes corrupted, twisted into something he never intended. The justice he once believed in is turned into chaos. This theory also plays with the title Resurrection in another way. It doesn't mean Dexter himself rises again. It means his legend does. The Bay Harbor butcher returns, not through flesh and blood, but through imitation, the resurrection of a myth. And maybe, just maybe, this is what finally draws Dexter out of hiding, if he is still alive. Imagine him walking the streets of New York, seeing his work copied in grotesque, clumsy ways. He would feel anger, he would feel ownership, and, above all, he would feel the need to put a stop to it. But here's the chilling paradox. If Dexter comes back to hunt the copycat, how different is he from them? How does he prove he is not the monster they worship? He would be hunting his own reflection, fighting a distorted mirror of himself. And in that fight, the line between legend and man would blur until neither side could tell the difference. The cult theory also raises another haunting possibility. What if the copycat isn't a stranger at all? What if it's someone from Dexter's past, a survivor, a victim's family member, or even someone who once investigated him? Someone who couldn't let go of the butcher and decided to become him. That kind of personal obsession would make the Ripper not just an imitator, but a challenger. A killer who isn't just inspired by Dexter, but who wants to replace him. This version of the story turns Dexter into something he never wanted to be, a symbol bigger than himself. He becomes less of a man, more of a myth, one that others use for their own purposes. And whether he's alive to fight it or not, his shadow walks again in New York. The question then becomes, if the New York Ripper is a copycat or a cult, is Dexter's story truly about resurrection or about being erased, replaced, and rewritten by those who came after him.